Clara, look what your sister-in-law brought for you. My sister-in-law, Isabel, was seated comfortably in our living room, gesturing for me to come closer. She had a placid, gentle smile on her face, but the sight of her sent a wave of terror through me. Goosebumps prickled my arms and a violent shiver traced its way down my spine. It was in that moment of visceral fear that the impossible reality crashed down on me. I had been reborn. Right there, on my own sofa, sat the woman who had orchestrated my downfall. She was reaching into her handbag, her movements slow and deliberate. She then produced two identical amulets, carved from what looked like pure white jade. "Sweetheart," she began, her voice dripping with false sincerity. "I had these specially commissioned from the temple, and I even had a master bless them. They are meant to bring good luck. It feels like fate that we're both pregnant at the same time, doesn't it? So I thought we should each have one. This one is for you, and this one is for me. If you wear it, it will protect our babies and ensure they arrive safely." In my previous life, Isabel had presented me with this very same good luck charm. I remember thinking it was made from high-quality, expensive jade, likely costing over $10,000. I had been so deeply moved by the gesture that I immediately put it around my neck and never took it off. I had been completely oblivious to the fact that this small, seemingly innocent trinket would be the instrument of my demise, stealing the life of my healthy, unborn baby girl and setting in motion the complete ruin of my family. My life ended in unimaginable suffering in the countryside, where I was eventually reduced to a skeletal figure and devoured by a sow in a filthy pig pen. I instinctively placed a hand over my stomach, a cold dread causing me to catch my breath. The memories were so vivid, so horrifying. When I first married into the family, Isabel had already been married to Leo's older brother, Nathan, for 3 years. Since we lived in separate houses, our interactions were infrequent and our relationship was civil, if not particularly close. That all changed earlier this year when Nathan was in a severe car accident that left him in a persistent vegetative state. During that difficult period, Isabel cried constantly and my heart went out to her. Feeling sorry for her and considering her family, I lent her $300,000 without even thinking to ask for a formal IOU. I never would have suspected her true nature. A month after the accident, both Isabel and I discovered we were pregnant. This coincidence only deepened my sympathy for her. I imagined how difficult her life must be, being pregnant while also shouldering the burden of caring for a husband who was essentially gone. I frequently bought her expensive supplements and always made sure to share the gourmet delicacies my parents sent me, giving her a generous portion of everything. I never could have guessed that the woman I was helping and caring for with such sincerity was secretly plotting to destroy me. In that past life, after Isabel gave me the good luck charm, I wore it faithfully, touched by her apparent kindness. It wasn't long, however, before my body began to change in alarming ways. My appetite swelled to a monstrous degree. Of course, pregnant women are known to eat more, but my hunger was insatiable. I felt like I could devour an entire cow at every meal and still feel empty. My body inflated like a balloon being pumped full of air. In the span of just 2 or 3 months, my weight surged past 200 pounds. At the same time, grotesque stretch marks appeared on my belly. They were a deep, dark purple and black, looking as though my skin was physically tearing itself apart from the strain of my rapid weight gain. I could eat more than 20 ears of corn in a single sitting and still be racked with hunger pangs. Then the bleeding started. My body began to secrete a sticky, foul-smelling fluid, and every trip to the bathroom was accompanied by a discharge of thick, yellow pus. By the time I was due to give birth, my weight had climbed to nearly 260 pounds. I am a short woman, only about 5 feet and 1 inch tall, and it took the combined effort of 3 strong male doctors to even lift me onto the hospital bed. The other patients in the maternity ward whispered and mocked me, calling me a reincarnated pig demon. I overheard them saying they had never seen such a fat woman giving birth and speculated that a C-section would be useless. A single incision wouldn't even draw blood, only release a torrent of fat. My husband, Leo, was openly disgusted with me. He told me I resembled a sow, some kind of pig spirit reborn in human form. He said I was so fat I no longer looked human, comparing me to an elephant from the zoo. In stark contrast, my sister-in-law Isabel had managed her pregnancy weight perfectly. She gained only about 15 pounds throughout her entire term, with all the weight concentrated in her neat, round belly. The rest of her body remained slender and elegant. Her complexion was rosy and vibrant, making her look younger and more beautiful than ever. Her face was as smooth and flawless as a freshly peeled hard-boiled egg. Back then, Isabel had even started live streaming her pregnancy journey online. Her beauty and poise attracted a large following, and her fans dubbed her the most beautiful pregnant woman. When our due dates arrived, Isabel and I went into labor at almost the same time. Her delivery was smooth and uneventful. She gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby girl who weighed over 6.5 pounds. The baby was perfect, with a cute little mouth and double eyelids. My delivery, however, was a nightmare. I gave birth to a baby with no arms, 3 legs, Down syndrome, and a staggering weight of 20 pounds. The baby's immense size meant that, after attempting a natural birth, I had to be rushed into an emergency C-section. The entire ordeal lasted for more than 10 agonizing hours. The moment the baby was born, I lost consciousness. When I finally woke up, a doctor informed me that my son's vital signs were all abnormal, and he had been taken to the emergency room for intensive care. The doctor gently told me that the child was unlikely to survive. Even with the most advanced treatment available, the medical bills would likely exceed $1 million. I was heartbroken. He was my own flesh and blood, and despite his deformities and diagnosis, I loved him. I begged the doctors to do everything in their power to save him, but I never, ever could have imagined what would happen next. My sister-in-law Isabel whispered poison into my mother-in-law's ear. "Mom," she said, "Clara gave birth to such a monster. If our relatives find out, it will be so humiliating for the family. Besides, that child is just a bottomless money pit. Every day in the ICU costs tens of thousands of dollars. Even if Leo is successful, he can't possibly afford that kind of expense." My mother-in-law had always been incredibly frugal. The moment she heard how much money it would cost to treat the child, her mind was made up. She secretly snuck into the hospital, took my baby from the ICU, and suffocated him to death. After my child died, Leo immediately asked for a divorce. He told me I was as fat as an old sow and that he had absolutely no interest in me anymore. He accused me of hiding a medical condition from him, claiming that was the only way I could have given birth to a deformed child. He wanted to force me out of the marriage with nothing. When I refused to leave, Leo tricked me into going with him to the countryside. There, he chained me up in a pig pen with a heavy iron chain. There was no food or water provided for me. My only option for sustenance was to fight with the pigs for their slop. Afraid that I might escape, Leo took a knife and severed the tendons in my hands and feet, leaving me bleeding and immobilized on the filthy ground. Pigs are omnivores. In the end, the sows in that pen ate me alive. Even after I died, my hatred was so immense that it could not be quenched. My soul became a lonely, wandering ghost, and I lingered around Leo every day. I was forced to watch as my own mother cried herself blind over my disappearance. My father, believing I was a missing person, was driving to the police station to file a report when his car was rear-ended by a large truck. He was killed instantly. After my father's death, Leo had my grieving mother committed to a mental hospital. He then seized all of my family's assets and my father's company. And then, he and Isabel finally got together openly. It was only then that I understood the full scope of their betrayal. This had been their plan all along. They had been having an affair for a long time. The child growing in Isabel's belly was not my brother-in-law Nathan's, but my husband Leo's. Furthermore, Isabel's family had a history of genetic disease. There had been 3 cases of Down syndrome in her family history. As soon as Isabel found out she was pregnant, she had gone for genetic testing and discovered that her fetus had problems. That was why she procured the cursed good luck charm. It was a tool to magically swap the fate of her unhealthy fetus with that of my healthy, unborn daughter. After my death, Isabel and Leo took over my property and my father's business. They lived a life of luxury and excess. Isabel even leveraged her most beautiful pregnant woman fame to become a major online influencer. Meanwhile, my entire family had been destroyed, all of us dying horrible, tragic deaths. Thinking about the devastating fate I suffered in my past life, I felt a rage so intense I could have ground my teeth to dust. Seeing Isabel sitting there in front of me, so smug and self satisfied, my only desire was to lunge forward and tear her to pieces. I realized that some higher power, perhaps heaven itself, must have taken pity on me. That's why I was given this second chance, reborn so I could personally deal with Isabel and Leo, this despicable pair of scoundrels. As these thoughts raced through my mind, Isabel must have noticed that my expression had darkened. She waved a hand in front of my face. "Clara, what are you thinking about so intensely?" she asked. Then she adopted an aggrieved tone, feigning hurt. "Sweetheart, I know your family is wealthy. You probably think this little good luck charm your sister-in-law got for you is too cheap. But this is all I can afford. $30,000 is everything I have saved. If you don't like it, you can just pretend I never offered it." As she spoke, she managed to squeeze out a few crocodile tears. Then she turned her head slightly, just enough to give my husband a subtle, meaningful look. Leo immediately understood his cue. He chimed in from the side, his voice laced with admonishment. "Clara, why are you being so arrogant with your sister-in-law? She's been so good to you, buying you such an expensive and thoughtful gift. You shouldn't be so ungrateful." As he spoke, he took the amulet from Isabel's hand and pushed it into mine. "From now on, you wear this every day. Don't you dare disrespect your sister-in-law's kindness. Also, I want you to transfer $100,000 to her later. She's pregnant too, and she's still thinking of you. Don't be so stingy. It makes you look uncultured." The coordinated performance between Leo and Isabel was truly something to behold. One played the role of the benevolent victim, the other the stern enforcer. They were so convincing they could have won acting awards. In my last life, I was such a fool. I not only accepted the charm, but also gave Isabel the $100,000. This time, however, things would be different. If they thought they could get any benefits from me in this life, they were dreaming. At that moment, a slow smile spread across my face. "Darling, what are you talking about?" I said sweetly. "How could I possibly dislike such a beautiful and precious jade pendant? I absolutely love it. I can't thank her enough." I paused for effect before adding, "Besides, how could $100,000 possibly be enough for Isabel? My brother-in-law is in a vegetative state now, so there must be many expenses. Isabel isn't working, and she's heavily pregnant. I think we should transfer at least $200,000 to her. That should be enough to cover her nutritional needs throughout her pregnancy." Hearing my words, Leo and Isabel exchanged a quick, smug glance. He replied calmly, trying to sound magnanimous, "It's good that you understand." But then I pretended to look troubled. "Honey," I said with a sigh, "it's just that my bank card has been frozen recently. There was a small issue with my dad's company finances, but it's nothing major. He's already sorted it out, and things should be back to normal soon. How about you transfer the $200,000 to Isabel first? I'll pay you back as soon as my card is unfrozen. Okay?" "What? Your bank card is frozen?" Leo was instantly surprised and clearly skeptical. I explained smoothly, "If you don't believe me, you can call my dad and ask." Leo was still somewhat intimidated by my father. After all, his current managerial position was at a company owned by one of my father's friends. He knew that a single word from my dad could have him demoted or even fired. Leo nodded reluctantly. "Fine. Just remember to pay me back." As he spoke, he grudgingly transferred $200,000 to Isabel's account. Then, the two of them announced they were going to the hospital to visit Leo's brother. I knew that visiting Nathan was just a flimsy excuse. This despicable pair was actually going out for a secret tryst. I didn't expose them. I just nodded lightly as they left. After they were gone, I immediately picked up the cursed amulet. I then made a video call to an old classmate of mine whose family owned a jade business that also did custom carvings. I showed him the pendant on camera and asked him how long it would take to create an identical one and what the cost would be. My classmate glanced at it and informed me that it wasn't white jade at all, but merely a polished piece of white glazed stone. He said it was a simple, unadorned pendant with no intricate carving. He could have a replica made for me in half a day, and the price would be just $500 to cover the cost of the material. I immediately transferred him the money. That evening, I drove to my old classmate's jewelry store to pick up the fake good luck charm, which I then put around my neck. As for the real one, as I was leaving the shop, I noticed a large yellow dog tied up at the entrance. The dog was small, but its belly was round and swollen with pregnancy. What struck me as odd was that such a small dog was restrained with a very thick iron chain, the other end of which was secured to a utility pole. It looked rather pitiful. I went back inside and asked my classmate, "Hey, what did that yellow dog do to deserve being tied up with such a heavy chain?" He explained, that's a stray we found. She's a mad dog, attacks people on sight. She's also riddled with infectious diseases. Parvo, mange, you name it. My dad was originally going to have her put down, but then we saw she was pregnant. I felt sorry for her, so I tied her up out here for now. We'll decide what to do with her after she gives birth. Maybe she'll have some healthy puppies. Hearing this, a plan formed in my mind. I took out the real amulet Isabel had given me, walked over to the mad dog, and hung the jade charm around its neck. Perhaps I was doing this poor animal a disservice, but I had no other choice. Reborn into this life, I was determined to have my revenge. I transferred another $1,000 to my old classmate, telling him to buy the dog plenty of bones and to take good care of her until she gave birth. When I arrived home later, I was surprised to find that Leo and Isabel were already back, sitting together on the living room sofa. Leo was personally peeling grapes and feeding them to Isabel one by one. Their bodies were pressed closely together, knees touching and shoulders brushing. Hearing the door open, Leo jumped up in fright and desperately tried to explain their intimacy away. Clara, Isabel and I went to the hospital to see Nathan. His condition is looking pretty good. On the way back, Isabel was worried about you. She said you must have a poor appetite because of the pregnancy, so she bought you some grapes. Come and have some." "Oh, okay," I said, smiling faintly. I walked over to the coffee table and deliberately bent down to pick up the bowl of grapes, making sure to reveal the pure white replica charm hanging around my neck. When Isabel saw it, she nodded, a look of happy satisfaction on her face. "That's right, sweetheart. I specially got this good luck charm for us. We sisters-in-law, one for each of us. Wear it close to your body every day. It can bring blessings for our children." Leo also chimed in, acting very pleased. "Yes, this charm is a token of your sister-in-law's kindness. You wear it every day from now on and absolutely do not take it off." Hearing this, I smiled faintly again. I picked up the bowl of grapes and handed it to Leo. "Honey, I want you to feed me personally," I said, deliberately drawing out my words in a pouting, coquettish tone. Seeing this, Isabel's expression soured. Her face was a mask of unnatural stiffness, but given her position as the other woman in my own home, she couldn't say anything. She just pursed her lips, her expression incredibly sour. In my past life, I was truly stupid. Isabel's possessiveness towards Leo was so obvious, yet I had failed to notice it at all. Suddenly, Isabel, still sitting on the sofa, cried out for no apparent reason. "Ouch, my stomach hurts so much, I feel awful." At first, Leo thought she was just being jealous. He shot her a secret glare, afraid I would notice their dynamic. But after a few moments, Isabel's face grew progressively paler, and a cold sweat broke out on her forehead. She clutched her lower abdomen, her whole body trembling. "It really hurts! My stomach, my stomach." It seemed the cursed amulet was already working its magic. The mad dog was tied to a utility pole outside my classmate's shop, where it barked furiously at anyone who passed by. My classmate had mentioned that many children lived in the nearby residential buildings and often threw stones at the dog for entertainment. Plus, the mother dog was covered in diseases like mange, parvo, and various skin conditions. It was clear that Isabel was in for a lifetime of suffering. Seeing that Isabel wasn't faking her pain, Leo anxiously knocked the bowl of grapes to the floor. He swept Isabel up in his arms and rushed into the bedroom. "Isabel, are you okay?" This pair of dogs was really putting on a show of deep affection. I slowly sat down on the sofa, looked at the scattered grapes on the floor, and viciously stomped on them a few times. After they went into the room, I could vaguely hear Isabel's voice coming from the bedroom. Leo, could there be something wrong with the baby? Don't worry, Leo's voice replied, muffled. I specially got that good luck charm. It definitely won't be a problem. You're further along in your pregnancy now. Maybe the baby is just kicking you. Their voices were very low, but I managed to overhear a crucial piece of information. So it was Leo who had obtained the child swapping charm. I had truly underestimated that gold digging schemer in my past life. A few hours later, after feeling a bit better, Isabel left my house. Leo then used the excuse of having to work overtime and left shortly after her. With both of them gone, my opportunity had arrived. I immediately got up, drove to a large electronics store at the mall, and purchased several small, high-quality hidden cameras. Back home, I carefully installed them in discreet locations in every corner of the main rooms. Then, I called my mom and asked her to come pick me up and take me back to my parents' house for a while. I often stayed at my parents' place, so this wasn't unusual. As an only child, my parents doted on me. I made the excuse that Leo was always working overtime and was too busy to take care of me now that I was pregnant. My mom immediately had the housekeeper prepare a room for me and went out to buy fresh seafood. She bought large quantities of expensive supplements like bird's nest and made all sorts of nourishing soups for me every day. After I returned to my parents' home, Leo was naturally in no hurry for me to come back. He finally had the freedom to be intimate with his dear sister-in-law without fear of being caught. Every day, I checked the surveillance footage from my house on my phone. For the first few days, Leo was cautious. But after only a week, he couldn't hold back any longer. The small, run-down house Isabel lived in was cold and lacked proper heating. The conditions were truly awful. Leo couldn't wait to move Isabel into my warm, comfortable house. The two of them made love on my marital bed, completely oblivious to the world, living it up as if they had every right to be there. I saved all of this surveillance footage. I continued to rest and recuperate at my parents' house. About 3 months later, Isabel's health took a rapid downturn. Her condition mirrored what I had experienced in my past life almost exactly. She was always hungry, constantly eating. In just 3 months, she gained an enormous amount of weight. Every day, she would go into the kitchen and stew a large pot of fatty meat for herself, and she had to drink bone broth daily. By now, Isabel probably weighed around 180 pounds. She was already short, and now her face was round and fat with a prominent double chin. When she undressed to take a bath, I saw through the camera that her belly was stretched as tight as a drum, and numerous dark, ugly stretch marks had appeared on it. The marks also covered her arms and thighs, dense and numerous, like countless small snakes coiling around her body. Even Leo's gaze towards Isabel had changed from one of initial passion to one of increasing disinterest. Although the two of them were still intimate every night, Leo had gone from being full of vigor to being extremely perfunctory in his duties. One night, I had just finished the nourishing soup my mom brought to my room and was lying in bed, scrolling through the home surveillance feed on my phone. I watched as Isabel, with great enthusiasm, pushed Leo onto the bed. But Leo just lay on his side, making excuses that he was too tired from work and wanted to rest. Isabel pouted complainingly. I've seen through you men. A wife is not as good as a concubine. A concubine is not as good as a secret lover. And a secret lover is not as good as one you can't have. I don't know who it was that used to cling to me every day. To be with me, you even harmed your own brother. Now my husband is in a vegetative state, and you're keeping your pants on tight. Anyway, I don't care. If you don't serve me well tonight, I'll spill the beans about your brother's car accident. Let's see if your parents will forgive you then. I never would have imagined it. Even Leo's brother's car accident was orchestrated by Leo himself. My heart skipped a beat as I stared intently at the phone screen. Hearing Isabel's threat, Leo hugged her and tried to comfort her. Suddenly, he covered his nose with his hand. Isabel, have you not been showering lately? Why do you smell so bad? I was actually getting in the mood just now, but this smell of yours is really killing it for me. Through the phone screen, I couldn't smell her, but I could roughly guess. How pleasant could the smell of a sick female dog be? It was probably the smell of pus from the mange sores on her body. Isabel had gained so much weight that even walking was now difficult for her. She reluctantly went to the bathroom and took another shower, as if determined to conquer Leo that night. After she finished, Leo regained some of his enthusiasm, and the two continued their intimate exchange on the bed. Suddenly, right in the middle of their act, Leo shouted, "Blood! Why is there so much blood?" Isabel was bleeding heavily from her lower body. Through the high-definition surveillance camera, I saw a large amount of ugly, thick, dark blood pooling on the bed, spreading all over the bedsheet. It was everywhere. Leo was terrified. He immediately called for an ambulance. About 15 minutes later, an ambulance arrived downstairs. It took 3 paramedics a great deal of effort to finally lift Isabel's massive body onto a stretcher. Leo told me about Isabel's hospitalization a week later. Apparently, she had suffered a major hemorrhage. The strangest thing was that after a thorough examination at the hospital, the babies in her belly were found to be perfectly healthy. The ultrasound even revealed she was pregnant with quadruplets. The only issue they found with her was some kind of growth on her body. A biopsy confirmed that Isabel had contracted dog mange. Although this was strange, Isabel was content as long as the babies were fine. She was worried that taking medication during pregnancy would harm them, so she stubbornly refused any treatment for the mange. After a few days of receiving IV fluids at the hospital, she packed her things and went home. After Isabel was discharged, I specifically asked my parents to accompany me on a visit to my in-laws' home to see her. Ever since my in-laws learned that Isabel was pregnant with quadruplets, she had become the great hero of the family. She was personally brought back to their home in the countryside and was being fed lavishly with rich, fatty foods every day. My in-laws lived in a small, single-story house. I asked my parents to come with me, and I also brought 4 bodyguards for protection. Entering my in-laws' small courtyard, I saw thick white smoke billowing from the chimney. The entire yard was filled with the smell of pork stewed with sauerkraut. Walking into the main room, I saw Isabel sitting cross-legged on the large, heated brick bed. She was holding a basin of large bones in her arms, gnawing on them with relish. On the small square table on the bed, there was also a large basin of boiled, fatty pork slices, pure meat sausages, and sauerkraut stewed with blood sausage. By now, Isabel's weight had easily exceeded 200 pounds. She was short to begin with, and now, covered in fat and sitting on the bed, she looked like a wild boar spirit from a cautionary tale. My mother-in-law was bustling around happily, saying she was going to make Isabel some rice mixed with lard. My father-in-law sat in a rocking chair, smoking his pipe, a wide smile on his face as he praised her. Truly, my good daughter-in-law, eat more. Being able to eat is a blessing. Your body is precious now, quadruplets in one go. The future of our family all depends on you. Seeing me and my parents walk in, my in-laws' expressions turned slightly displeased. My father-in-law had never liked me much. After Leo and I got married, people in their village gossiped that Leo was just a pretty boy who had married into money, a kept man. My father-in-law felt this brought shame to the family name. So while he was happy to spend my money, he never gave me a pleasant look. As for my mother-in-law, she had a strong preference for sons over daughters, and all she ever wanted was a grandson. When she first learned Isabel and I were both pregnant, she would bring her homemade sauerkraut to my house every day. But my mother-in-law was a terrible cook. Her sauerkraut had gone bad and stank. When I refused to eat it, she declared that a craving for sour meant a boy, and a craving for spicy meant a girl. Since I wouldn't eat the sour things, I must be carrying a money-losing girl. After that, she hardly paid any attention to me. I walked into the room and saw Isabel sprawled out like a giant blob on the heated bed. I couldn't help but let a slight smile touch my lips. Sister-in-law, it looks like your appetite has been quite good lately. I heard you were hospitalized a few days ago, so today I specially brought some supplements to help you recover. It had been 3 months since I had last seen Isabel in person. In that time, she had practically doubled in size. Her skin was sallow and broken out, and she reeked of a sour, unwashed smell. I, on the other hand, had a rosy complexion and a well-maintained, curvaceous figure. For the health of my own baby, my mother had hired a professional nutritionist who prepared a variety of balanced, nutritious meals for me every day. Now, at over 7 months pregnant, I had only gained about 15 pounds. My figure had become even more graceful than before my pregnancy, and my skin was much smoother. Isabel sat on the bed, her mouth greasy as she gnawed on a piece of fatty meat. She stared at me with jealous, vicious eyes. "Well, sweetheart, you certainly haven't suffered during your pregnancy, have you?" she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Now that she was the one carrying quadruplets, she had dropped all pretense of kindness. She was confident that her child swapping plan with me had been a resounding success. I smiled charmingly. What can I do? I just don't seem to gain weight no matter how much I eat. Unlike you, sister-in-law, you're so blessed. This good fortune of yours is just impossible to hide. Just then, my mother-in-law came in carrying another large pot of lard mixed rice. Oh, Isabel, eat more. The more you eat, the better my grandson will develop. As long as you give our family a big, healthy grandson, Mom will give you this house and this gold bracelet too. Whatever you want, Mom will give it to you. Unlike some people, so pretentious all the time. So what if her family is rich? If she can't produce a son, she'll just end up having her family's wealth devoured by others sooner or later. I deliberately raised an eyebrow and looked at my mother-in-law. Mom, what do you mean by that? I'm the only child in my family. Are you suggesting that Leo only married me to get his hands on my family's inheritance? My mother-in-law just snorted coldly. I didn't say anything. Just then, my phone rang. I took it out and deliberately put it on speaker. Old classmate. What did you call me for? On the other end of the line, my classmate replied, It's like this, Clara, that pendant you asked me to custom make last time. Although the style is simple, it's quite grand and substantial. Didn't you hang an identical one around a dog's neck? Recently, a few customers came to my shop and they all really liked that pendant. They want me to find the material and make a few more identical ones. I wanted to ask if you would mind if I mass-produce that design. Would it involve any copyright issues? I deliberately replied in an exaggeratedly casual way, Of course I don't mind. It's just a small good luck charm. How could it possibly involve any copyright? By the way, old classmate, that mad dog tied up at your doorstep, it should be giving birth soon, right? I hadn't even finished speaking when Isabel, sitting on the bed, suddenly let out a blood-curdling scream. She flailed her arms and legs wildly, shouting at me. What did you say? What pendant? What dog? Suddenly, the realization hit her. Isabel struggled to get up from the bed and lunged towards me, trying to tear at my clothes. Where's your pendant? Where is the pendant around your neck? By now, Isabel was enormous, and her movements were exceptionally clumsy. I took one small step backward, and she lost her balance, falling flat on the ground. I curved my lips into a smile. Sister-in-law, what pendant are you talking about? The blessed good luck charm you gave me? To be honest, I quite like that pendant. It's just that my classmate's family has a mad dog that is also female and pregnant. I saw the mother dog wasn't doing too well, so I hung the pendant you gave me around the mad dog's neck to give her some good luck. But don't worry, sister-in-law, I wouldn't betray your good intentions. I even had an identical pendant custom made. I wear it every day and never take it off. At that moment, Isabel's eyes were wide with terror. She screamed, Ah, a mother dog, my babies, quadruplets. She clutched her belly, shouting desperately, In-laws, call Leo, quick, quick. Just then, a warm liquid flowed down from between Isabel's legs. Her water had broken. She was going into premature labor. I had recently contacted my old classmate, and he had mentioned that their mad dog was due to give birth that very day. The small house was thrown into complete chaos. My father-in-law and mother-in-law were frantically calling for an ambulance and trying to reach Leo on the phone. Isabel lay on the ground, screaming like a pig being led to the slaughter. The show was over. I clapped my hands lightly and left with my parents and my bodyguards. My in-laws, this old couple, were truly cowards. Seeing the imposing bodyguards behind me, they not only refrained from any violence, but didn't even dare to utter a single curse in my direction. Later, I heard that Isabel was in the hospital for a whole day and night, giving birth to her quadruplets. She finally delivered 4 stillborn, dog-like creatures. The 4 babies were tiny. The heaviest didn't even weigh 2 pounds. They all had the heads of dogs on human-like bodies, a bizarre and horrifying sight. They were all stillborn, not a single one alive. I also heard that before Isabel was sent into the delivery room, she managed to get through to Leo on the phone. Leo went to a great deal of trouble and finally found my old classmate's shop. When he saw the mad dog, it had also just given birth. But the dog had only 1 pup, and it too was a little monster. Although it had a dog's body covered in fur, the puppy's face was somehow very human-like, and it strongly resembled the face of someone with Down syndrome. When Leo saw that puppy, he was so enraged that he stomped it to death with one kick and threw its body into a sewer. The mother dog kept running towards Leo, barking furiously. In his rage, Leo grabbed a stick and was about to smash the dog's head, but the mad dog was no pushover. It opened its jaws and bit down hard on Leo's arm, leaving a deep, gushing wound and tearing off a piece of his flesh. But the poor dog still died in the end. It wasn't beaten to death by Leo. Rather, the puppy it delivered was too large, and she bled uncontrollably, whimpering until she died less than 2 hours later. My old classmate had a kind heart. He took the mad dog's body to a pet hospital for cremation, bought a small urn for her ashes, and buried them under an old tree in the local park. As for the other mother, Isabel, her luck was far worse. After she gave birth to the 4 monstrous creatures, my in-laws immediately decided she was a source of bad luck. They didn't even let her stay in the hospital for a day to recover. They processed her discharge and took her directly back to their old house in the countryside. My mother-in-law is extremely superstitious because her eldest son, Nathan, had recently been in an accident that left him in a vegetative state, and now Isabel had given birth to 4 dog-like monsters. My mother-in-law became convinced that Isabel was a reincarnated demon. She believed Isabel had cursed her eldest son and that the birth of the monsters was a warning of some impending misfortune. If they didn't deal with Isabel, she was terrified that Isabel would bring ruin to their entire family. Therefore, Isabel's fate became almost identical to mine in my past life. My mother-in-law wanted to dispose of her, but didn't dare to kill her outright. Coincidentally, they had a litter of sows at home. So, my mother-in-law chained Isabel up in the pig pen with an iron chain and gave her no food or water. At first, Isabel could only fight with the pigs for their slop. But as I knew all too well, pigs, which may look gentle, are actually extremely aggressive animals. In just 3 days, Isabel was eaten alive by the group of sows. She was gnawed by the pigs until not even bone fragments remained. And before she died, she was still screaming Leo's name. Leo knew about this. He even approved of his parents' actions. After my rebirth, through several months of careful investigation, I finally discovered the full extent of Leo's depravity. He was a complete and utter scumbag. The wicked things he had done were not limited to me and Isabel. According to my investigation, before he married me, he had a childhood sweetheart he'd known for over 10 years named Sophie. She was also from the countryside. Both her parents had died, and her circumstances were quite pitiful. Although Sophie and Leo never officially married, they lived together in my in-laws' small house. Later, Leo met me. Because my family was well off and I was an only child, he pursued me intensely and broke up with Sophie. But Sophie not only refused the breakup, she also told him she was already 4 months pregnant with his child. After that, Sophie was never seen again. I strongly suspect that she was also dealt with by Leo and his family, perhaps in that same pig pen. After investigating all of this, I still held back. I didn't have enough solid evidence to go to the police, and I didn't dare to act rashly. My daughter hadn't been born yet, and I knew Leo had an extreme volatile personality. I was afraid that if I made one wrong move and pushed him too far, he was capable of anything. Reborn in this life, my only wish was for my child to be born safely and for my parents to be safe so our family could live happily. After Isabel died, Leo finally remembered me again. He calculated the dates and realized I was about to give birth soon. He started coming to my parents' house every day to see me, trying to coax me to go home with him. He told me to rest well and to be sure to give the family a big, healthy grandson. On the surface, I remained pleasant and non-committal, making excuses that I was used to living at my parents' house and would move back after the baby was born and I had finished my postpartum confinement. I then tentatively asked him, "By the way, how is sister-in-law doing now? I heard she was pregnant with quadruplets, but all the babies died at birth. Is she okay?" Leo smiled, his words flawless. Our sister-in-law was heartbroken after giving birth to 4 stillborn babies. Mom and Dad didn't blame her. They were planning to bring her home for postpartum recovery, but she was in a bad mood and said she wanted to go back to her parents' place for a visit. So, mom gave her $20,000 and she bought a train ticket and went back to her parents' home. Hearing this, I nodded lightly while secretly recording what he said on my phone. A few more months passed. I finally gave birth to a beautiful, healthy daughter. During this time, I hadn't been idle. I hired a private investigator to look into Leo's family affairs. Sure enough, while I was still in my postpartum confinement, the investigator sent me a file. He had confirmed that Isabel had not returned to her hometown at all, but had mysteriously disappeared. He also found evidence related to Sophie's disappearance many years ago, enough to prove that it was Leo and his parents who had conspired to kill both women, disposing of their bodies in the pig pen. I took all the evidence I had collected, including the recordings of Leo's lies and the hidden camera footage, directly to the police. Not long after, following an investigation, it was confirmed that Leo's family had murdered Isabel, and, years earlier, Sophie. Leo and his parents were arrested. The evidence was overwhelming, and their fate was sealed. His parents were old, but they would surely die in prison for their crimes. After Leo was sentenced one day, I received a call from the prison. Apparently, Leo had gone mad in his cell and was intensely demanding to see me. When I went to visit him, he was frantic, his face pressed against the transparent glass separating us. He shouted at me, his voice raw. "How could it be like this? It can't be like this. It wasn't like this in the last life. You finally came back, right? You came back early, didn't you?" It seemed Leo had been reborn too. But I was curious. In our last life, he and Isabel conspired to kill me. Why would he also be given a second chance? Looking at the crazed man on the other side of the glass, I allowed a small, cold smile to form on my lips. "That's right," I said. "I came back early. Leo, in your last life, you killed me. In this life, I am your vengeful ghost. You are finished." I didn't divorce him. As the wife of a convicted murderer later declared mentally incompetent, I became the sole heir to all his property. 2 months later, Leo's parents were executed for their crimes. Leo himself was transferred from prison to a high-security mental hospital. I made sure to bribe the doctors and staff there, asking them to take good care of him. After all, I wanted my husband to live a long, long life. Otherwise, how could it possibly make up for all the suffering I endured in my past life? From then on, Leo lived in that mental hospital for 3 full years. When he finally died, he was as thin as a skeleton. On the day he died, I put on a bright red dress and set off a long string of celebratory firecrackers at my doorstep. My parents were always by my side, and my beautiful daughter was safe with me. In this life, I was finally content.